Hello darkness, my old friend. I am playing with a guitar that bends. Last week Oculus sent us a plastic guitar to review Rock Band VR with. Here it is, there's the Oculus Touch controller, and there is that weird plastic thing that you get when you buy an Oculus Rift, specifically to attach it to the Rock Band guitar. Now, despite the game being called Rock Band VR, other than a separate classic game mode, it's really not anything like the previous Rock Band games. In Rock Band VR, rather than pushing buttons and strumming in time to the on-screen prompts, the title takes the rather unique and original approach to rhythm-based gaming, with the player having the freedom to completely artistically destroy a song while still getting plenty of points. The crux of the mechanics are based around varying finger positions, matching some of the positions presented on the screen in the right places of the song, and then strumming in time to the beat. The game also features a more advanced mode where you have to additionally take into account the pattern shape, but then move it up and down the controller at set points in time. Even after going through the game's rather extensive tutorials, it's really not that intuitive and obvious of a game to play, especially in contrast to the non-VR Rock Band games, which are simply a case of pushing the correct buttons when they're at the bottom of the screen. From that complexity though comes an experience that feels more analogous in some ways to playing a real guitar, with it allowing you to focus more on enjoying the music and the feeling of actually being on stage rather than punching buttons like a demonic humanoid fairground organ. In my opinion, the gameplay changes work well for the nature of virtual reality. However, the game does then lose that immediate, intuitive and strangely addictive quality the old Rock Band titles offer. I also found that in Rock Band VR there are many times where it's completely ambiguous as to how well you're doing, with the points not always reflecting the quality of the sound that you're producing. In terms of the actual single player and campaign, the game comes with 60 songs and allows you to play through a selection of events composing of a song list, with you then receiving a final score for each song, and assuming you pass all the songs you then unlock new venues and progress the storyline. The story itself though is rather dull, with writing on a par with what you'd find in children's TV. Jokes and character moments all fall flat, and pretty much make you want to put your face into a blender. That being said, the technical execution and animation is all really nicely done and goes a long way into making for what is an extraordinarily immersive experience. Outside of the core gameplay, obviously the biggest difference is the fact that this is a VR title, and with that, the game offers perhaps currently one of the best simulations of being stood on a stage performing for a crowd of people. So much so that if you happen to be rather introverted, this could possibly be one of the most horrific games you've ever played. Even if you're not particularly introverted, the way audience members stare back at you and respond to you looking at them is really quite creepy. Visually, the Rock Band art style, especially the character design, looks somewhat strange in virtual reality, giving the impression that the game takes place in an alternative universe with severe food scarcity, as everyone appears to be chronically underweight. This aspect of the character design never really felt off playing on the non-VR versions of the game, but I think the 3D depth that VR offers and the fact that you're actually placed in the game with the characters is what makes your band and fans just look so emaciated and in need of an IV drip along with some tubs of butter. Despite the starvation issue, one of the really nice visual aspects of the game is the effect of the lighting changes when activating the tilt mode of the guitar. It's really quite striking and very overwhelming at first. Another nice effect is activated when in the solo sections, and you essentially get to have your guitar ejaculate streams of pulses of light into the audience, over your bandmates, and wherever you point your instrument. Unfortunately in 2D, and as you watch this review, it just doesn't capture how good it looks in VR. And it's certainly one of those things that only really works while seen in 3D with 90+ degrees field of view. Now in terms of performance, our i7-6700K along with a GTX 1070 graphics card had absolutely no issues, with no drops or noticeable frame rate issues, despite recording and putting all the settings on maximum. For those of you with slower systems, the game does have the option to turn down AA, change the resolution scale, and they also have an adaptive setting that lets you basically set it and forget it, and for the most part the game will just adjust things to make sure you always hit that required 90 FPS. Back to the plastic controller. It wouldn't be a Rock Band game without the plastic controller, and it's pretty nifty how the touch controller slots into the guitar with the provided adapter, and once it's on, the game tracks the guitar pretty much flawlessly, with it giving a really good sense of presence as you then have a fully one-to-one real-world prop for the in-game guitar. One issue though with this setup is that you can't see your hands, which can add another additional layer of difficulty and complexity to learning the gameplay, especially when it comes to getting your fingers in the right spots. Unfortunately, we also had issues getting the guitar to work with the game due to the whammy bar not being detected. The solution, as it turns out, was to either unplug our keyboard or make sure the keyboard was plugged into a USB hub. The last time I had an issue like that was in 2006 or so with Trackmania and my Satec keyboard. Though rather the issue being the keyboard itself, I think this is to do with USB addressing and some funky Windows stuff, so just bear that in mind if you have that problem yourself. After the 3 or so hours of smashing our head into our desk until we worked out what the issue was, and we got everything working, since then it's all worked flawlessly, and it's really nice how you can just turn your guitar on, pop your Oculus Rift on your head and get playing in under 2 minutes. In conclusion, Rock Band VR is a very interesting game, and if you're a fan of rhythm or music games, it's certainly worth checking out, if anything, for its originality in its games design. It's a rather strange title though, in that it seemingly focuses on gameplay and presentation you would think is more in the casual spectrum, yet at the same time it requires some quite complex skills to play, is not immediately intuitive, and then lacks the really defined competitive immediate feedback you'd expect hardcore gamers to look for. With that said though, players that are willing to get over the initial frustration and also be relaxed about the scoring will probably find this a really enjoyable game to play. Probably the most notable aspect of this game is the sheer amount of control over the sound of the song that the player gets, and no other game I've played gives you this degree of control other than maybe some of those old DJ mixing games you could get back in the late 2000s. Sure, at times it's more Michael J. Fox Back to the Future guitaring on a stage simulator than it is I'm a professional rock star in a rock band simulator, but crucially at its core, despite some frustration and complexity, it has some really fun moments. Rock Band is available for the Oculus Rift and you will need a Rock Band controller. I've placed a link to compatible controllers in the video description and I will try my best to keep them up to date as the Mad Catz fiasco is resolved. Those of you that subscribe after watching this video will have your lives turned up to 11, which of course is better than 10. Likey dislikey, drop us a comment, and thanks for watching everybody. I will see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.